We are on Daf Chavdalad Amud Aleph, and we are in the Gemara, Notor Ruboy Hareya Kechotzer. That's about 8-9 line downs from the top. So this is referring back to a brisa, that the brisa is talking about a karfuf, which is usually sort of a fenced-off area which you use for all different things. But this karfuf was hukaf ledira. It was fenced for a dira, but later there was growing there either trees or crops. So basically, it says over there that if it's growing crops and the majority are, if the majority of the of this karfuf, which is more than Beis Hasayim, so if the karfuf which is more than Beis Hasayim, if the majority of it is cropped, so then it crops, since it's not hukaf l'dira, so then the gets a din of not hukaf l'dira, even though that you may have there things which are you have there part of it which is for a dira, but nevertheless, if it's more than Beis Hasayim, and if it's more than Beis Hasayim and of crops, and it's more than Beis Hasayim of crops, and that's roiv, so then the rest of the chotzer becomes bottled to that, and you cannot carry in that chotzer. Why? Because crops are a place which is not ledira, and if that's the rov, and it's more than Beis Hasayim, then it affects the rest. That it's all like it has a din of not hukaf ledira. Whereas if you planted trees, then trees are considered. It doesn't take it away from being hukaf ledira. If you just have a place where you plant trees, that is not called hukaf ledira. A place, if you fence off a place which is for planting trees, that itself does not make it hukaf ledira. But if there is part of the area which is hukaf ledira, and the rest of the part, even though it's a large part and so on, if the rest of the part is trees, so that does not take it away from being hukaf ledira, because it's all, the trees are considered, the area of the trees are considered part of the dira, because there's areas there where you can move around, enjoy yourself over there, etc. So it's part. It does not take it away from being hukaf ledira. Okay. Amar Rabbi. So he said in the name of people who it's tablois. That if it's it's nice and neat and in lines, so therefore it's it's a pleasant place to use, and therefore it's a pleasant place to use. So then it's considered part of the dira, which the other area which is a dira, and that will be considered part of it. Rav Nachman says, even though it's not so nicely, neatly lined up, like you have trees are spaced out. I mean, provided that they're not like such a way that you can't go through it. If obviously the trees are all so mangled up and so on that you can't go through it, that would not be. But if it's just not neat and it's just as random all over the place, but there is some space between them where you can move around. So even though it's not lined up and it's not in lines, it's not so neat, it's still considered part of the dira. Okay, Bar Yehuda, he came to the house of Bar Yehuda, Chazina, so he came to his house and he saw Chazina Lahan. He saw there was this area there which was not nice and neat. And he saw that they were carrying there. So he must have said to Rav Huna, you don't hold of his family was carrying there. So he said, you don't hold of Avimi, that said that if it has to be neat, otherwise it's not considered part of the dira. I'm not Rav Nachman severely that I hold like Rav Nachman it doesn't have to be so neat. Okay. Now we have another day. It's a different thing. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel. said in the name of Shmuel, Karfef Yosim Beis sign. So, right. So, just before we start, there's a very basic principle. The principle is that when you made, when you made the gather, was it hook up l'dira? It's not hook up l'dira. Did you make it? You fence it off. You fence off to be used as a living area or not as a living area, storage or whatever. So, Amr Rahman Shmuel, Karfef Yosim Beis sign, which is more than Beis sign, because if it's a sign or less, then you're permitted to carry that. You're permitted to carry that even midrabanan. So, but Shaloi hook up l'dira, it was not fenced off for a living place, but then he decided that he wants to live there. So he would, built himself a hut or a house or whatever it is there, and he wants to live there. So that is not sufficient, because since it's loy hook of l'dira, even though now you are using it l'dira, that will not be good enough that to permit you to carry if it's more than base society, because the hekef you have to. The hekef, when you make the fencing, it has to be for a dira. So so what does he do now? It's all fenced up. He just built the house. So now he has to have another expense making redoing the whole fencing. So he says that the solution to that is okay, you make a break in the fencing more than 10 amas. And once you make a break more than 10 amas, so you've destroyed the fencing. If that would be a mavoy or whatever, these things you cannot carry, because a 10 amas is considered a pesach. So therefore, if you make an opening of 10 amas, that's considered still part of the fencing is not destroyed. It's still considered a fenced off area, and that is the opening which you make. That's the entrance. But if you make it more than 10 amas, unless you make it tzuras pesach, but without the tzuras pesach, if you make it more than 10 amas, it's considered you've broken the fencing, and the area is not a fenced up area. So therefore, you break off more than, you make a break in the fencing larger or wider than 10 amas, the goydre, and then you fence it, umamid al eser, and he makes that the opening should be eser. So he doesn't really have to fence everything back. He just has to, quite frankly, break 11 amas. So 11 amas, so then the fencing, the area is not considered a fenced up area anymore. Then he adds 1 amma to it. So now he's fenced off the area. Why? Because now he's created, by putting this 1 amma of fencing, he has created a fenced up area which has a nice large pesach. Of course, if he wants to fence up more, he can fence up more. It's not a problem. Yeah, but I mean, that's just the minimum amount of work which he has to do. And then, so now, so this area is now considered hookup l'dira. You had the house there, and then you've made the fencing again, and you've made the fencing. So it's a new fencing, and this fencing was made l'dira, because you put this amma in as we wanted to use it as a dira. Okay. Now the questions are this. See, in our case, it was simple. It became an unfenced area, and then he turned it into a fenced area. So that's a complete new fencing, because he turned it into a fenced area. And the fenced area was when he turned it into a fenced area, it was the Shem Dira. But here is a case where it always remained a fenced area. Let's see. What's the question? Paratz Amma v'Godra Amma. He broke an Amma and he fixed an Amma. So Paratz Amma v'Godra Atrish Limel Yese Me'eser. He broke an Amma and fixed an Amma. The Kitzer, he didn't. It was never one time when there was a break more than 10 Ammas. So he broke an Amma, put a new piece of fencing. Then and then later maybe he made 10. Yeah. So therefore the entire time there never was a time when it was not considered a fenced off area. Nevertheless, you do there is now a new fencing, which there is more than 10 amas of new fencing. There's more than 10 amas of new fencing here. So is that considered mukaf ladira, or it's not considered? Is it considered that the fencing was made ladira, or that's not sufficient because the original it never became an unfenced up area and then you fenced it. But the truth of the matter is that you have here a substantial amount of new fencing, which is in other circumstances is good enough to be considered. It is good. There's enough of an amount of new fencing that it could have been the new fencing. Okay, so he answered him. So he answered, isn't that of a Mishnah? Is a Mishnah. What's the Mishnah? This now we're not kol balibatim, sorry, kol kli balibatim. We're talking about wooden vessels. If it's concerning the dinim of tumah, and we know the dinim of tumah, a vessel is mekabel tumah. If it's not a vessel, it's not mekabel tumah. Now, what happens if you have a vessel which is tumah? So if you make a hole in it, the hole of sufficient size that the vessel is not considered a vessel anymore, it's useless as a vessel anymore. So that it's not considered a vessel anymore, then it loses its tumah, because tumah is only by a vessel. So kol kli balabatim, if it's a vessel balabatim, if it's for sale, it's different than the smaller holes. Make it unfit to be considered a vessel. But if it's a wooden vessel and it belongs to balabatim, and if you have a bit of a hole, they'll still continue using it as a vessel. You have maybe he was keeping olives in it, and now it's a hole. The olives will fall out. Okay, he's going to put larger fruits in it. But if it's shiuron, the shear of balabatim is kirimonim, like a pomegranate. Okay. So therefore, if you want a vessel of balabatim and it became tomei, in order to become toyer, you have to make a hole in it the size of a ribbon that the ribbon should fall through. Okay, now, boy Cheske asked a question. Nikil k'moitzes sorry, Nikil k'moitzes zayis. The hole was only the size of a zayis. Then he sopped the saucepan. He blocked it up. The chaz of a nikil k'moitzes zayis, the saucepan. Okay, so there's always a small hole, and every time you fixed it, now the total fixed area, which is all in the one next to the other, the total fixed area is kemoitzirimai. So there is a new piece there, which is kemoitzirimai, but it never became unfit because it never had a hole of a rim in it. But the fixed area, which is all joined together, is actually a fixed area of a rim. Mahu is that considered that new type of vessel, and the old tumah has gone, because the old vessel doesn't exist anymore, because the old vessel is missing the rimon part. So is it considered a new vessel or not? So this was, so Cheske asked this question, which is a similar question to over here. It's a similar question over here, that he never ever broke it enough to be considered not fenced or not a vessel. But the fact of the matter is, you now have a new piece, which is good enough to have. If it would have been broken, it would be good enough to make it a new fence. Yeah. So Cheske asked the question. Rabbi Yochanan was there. Well, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi, you taught us this. So he's telling him the answer is responding that you actually taught us this. What's the story? Sandal, a shoe. Again, a shoe. There is a tumah called tumas medras. Tumas medras means that the zav walks or sits on certain types of things which are meant for, like a couch or a bed or shoes, which are meant for standing or for sitting on. So if a zav stands on something which is meant for sitting and standing on, so that becomes tumas medras. Zav or a nida, it becomes a tumas medras. Tumas medras is very strict. Tumah has many halachas. One of them is that the that itself becomes an avatuma and is the bed or the thing, because only avatuma is metama odom. And the bed or the seat or the couch or the chair, tame odom v'keli. Now, so here this sandal was the tummy from the zav stepped on it or used it, whatever it was, and so it became a tumas medras. Now, what happens is it has, I guess, two ears or belt or some straps, wherever that keeps it. On the foot, have these two straps. The kids are shenifsika achas me oslo. One If both of them are ripped, then it's lost its din of tumas medras for love. It's obviously not tumas medras because you can't use a footwear anymore. But the one broke, the tikron, and he fixed it. So tumas medras, it's still tummy. If it's just one, I fix it, or even if he didn't fix it, the truth of the matter is, still it's tumas medras because it's still usable as a shoe, even one belt is missing, one strap, sorry. Nifsik or shnia, so one that broke and he fixed it. Nifsik or shnia, then the second one broke, the tikron and he fixed it. So then Torah is Torah, the Minha Medras. It's Torah from the Medras. It's why? Because so we see over here, it's Torah Minha Medras. Why? Because the old straps went away. So once the old straps went away, so therefore the original vessel, which was originally, isn't there because without any straps at all, it's not really a shoe. So therefore the original shoe which we had is not there because both straps have been that even though there was never a stage where it was unusable. Okay, so I hope I'm back again. I think so we were talking about the shoes, I think, when we broke off, and so what do we say? So if you change the straps, even if you change them one by one, it's still the old vessel is not here anymore. And nevertheless, even though therefore the tumas medras is gone, so therefore this shoe is not going to be an avatuma. Nevertheless, Aval Tome Magemedras. It's still Tome because it touched the medras. I mean, that the shoe is still Tome. Why? Because it's not Tuma of Aval Tuma, it's a Rishon Tuma. Why? Because this shoe, it's the same shoe which was before, really. Yeah, I mean, certainly the bottom part of the shoe is the same one which was before, and therefore it's the same part was before. So that it certainly touched itself. It's a continuation of the old. It's a continuation of the old shoe. So there can be no bigger touching of it. It was Tomei Medras, and then the Tomei Medras went away. But there cannot be a bigger touching of an item than you yourself being beforehand Tomei Medras, and now it's gone away, and so you're touching it, yeah. And Rashi says that even though there's no straps on it, it would still be somewhat considered a keli. That's what Rashi says. I mean, there's a whole lot of places, but I'm just repeating what Rashi says. So Rashi says that it would not be a keli altogether, like a keli which gets a hole in it. So if a keli gets a hole in it, then it's not a keli at all. It can't have any tumah. But since it's still considered some sort of keli, okay, it's not the value of a shoe. It's still considered some sort of keli, the shoe without the straps. So therefore, it's a continuation of from before. There's no greater touching of what is previous state. It's certainly considered like touching, and it's Tomei Magemedras. It's a bit Tomei Rishon. Okay. You explained us. So you explained us this when this din that why, when the first one strap is taken off, it's still Tomei Medras, it's still the original Tumah still stays. Why? Because the second strap is left. So even when the second strap is ripped off, but it's still considered a keli, it's still a shoe, because one belt, if one of the straps is still there, the new strap is still there, so it's still a shoe. So the whole time it was a shoe. It never ever was not a shoe, because the first one, the replacement of the first strap is still there. So it never actually lost the status of being a shoe. And nevertheless, we say it's lost its original tumah. But Amr, you explain us, That okay, it's never ever lost the status, but that is not the deciding factor. The deciding factor is that it's now considered a new item. Because since you have two new straps, the fact that it is a shoe now is a new thing. It's a new shoe. It's not the old shoe. This is a new shoe, even though it never lost the status of a shoe. Same thing also will apply to the fencing. That's a new fence. So that was the so Rabbi Yochanan used that to answer the question concerning the vessel with the holes, and so when he to his teacher, so when his teacher heard that, he said, less than this is not human. This is like an angel. This is like such a svara to connect the two items. Amazing. Some say that's a mensch. He said that's a mensch. That's a odom gadol. You're able to connect these two halachas and learn one from the other. That's amazing that you thought of that. And so therefore, the same principle will apply also to the case of the mechitza, that if you have a new part more than eser, which you have fenced off, so that is a plan chadashus. It's a new mechitza. It's not the old. And this new one was hooked up there. Okay. Rav Kana says, if you have a back garden, the back garden they never used to use it in those days. They didn't use it. It wasn't used for living. So that the front yard, yes, not the backyard. So you can only carry the aldamas because the rabbanon. It's not hookah provided it's more than base sign. Rav Nachman said in Pesach like Pesach mutter. If you open your if you open the door of your house to the backyard, so you have an opening to the backyard, so then you're going to use it. You're going to use that mutter tatel impossible Pesach mutter tatel Pesach material, because the Pesach is material. The fact that you open the door, so that is matir the chotzer, the backyard, because now you can show you're going to use it. Okay, but loya moron, and when do we say that you're allowed to use it? Elisha Pasach. We'll talk about again the rechov, which is more than basic sign. But Elisha Pasach will be safe hookup. That it was first he opened the door, later he made the fencing, because the hekef has been made the shem dira. Avol hookup will be safe Pasach. But if it made the fencing and then later he opened the door to it, loy, then it's not. Then it's not. Then it's not. You can't carry because the hekef has to be down the shem dira. It's not. Once it's not down the shem dira, you can't just open the door to it. You have to redo the fencing in some way. Okay. So Gemara says, possible to say hookup pshita. Why does he have to tell us this thing of that he made the door and then later he made the fence? Pshita, we know that. That's of course that's the Gemara says leitzricha the isbei dori. That there is further along that there is some oitzer where he keeps his storage place further where he keeps his tfor. He keeps his tfor, his harvest. So where he keeps his harvest. So he has further along when keeps his harvest. So therefore, that would say that even though he opened the door, first he opened the door, but it's not to live. Because even though he made the house, he made the back door to the house, but maybe the back door of the house was not to use this area behind the house. It was just because he wanted to be able to access the storage of the goren, and therefore it's not considered hooker for dira. So we say no. If the door was open, he probably intended to use the whole area, and the fencing was done to shem dira. Okay. Kamashma. Okay, now Navdin, Karfa for Yosef Besasayim, Hooker for Dira. Okay, you may have this area, more than Besasayim, and it's Hooker for Dira. And it's Malamayim, it's full of water. For whatever reason, rain, whatever it is, it's filled up with water. Okay, so the Sober on the name of the Chacham in the yeshiva, they thought to say, now it's filled up with water, a very large area of it, at least filled up with water, even not all of it. So it's filled up with water. So therefore, because Zraim dummy, it's like Zraim, it's like crops. You can't go there. You can't live there. There's water there. You can't live there. So, but also it's also. So therefore, it may well after even the rest, depending how large, with the tzarov, etc., and like all these halachas which we learned before concerning the other days, early in the last week. So So it's also that's what his name, the name of Rob. Mayim knetoim the water is like trees, and Vishari it's permitted because just like by trees, even though it's not a real living area, but still part of the living area because you do go there and you do it, enjoy yourself over there, etc. So it's part of the same thing. Water, when you have water, water is part of the living. You're going to use it. I don't think it means you're going to swim there. No, it doesn't. But it means that it's part of the living because you're going to use the water to drink. So it's that was you use water to drink. What greater living area than you is that than using it to drink? The ending was going to say, Amr said, that if it's raw, it's fit to drink. But if it's like water which you can't, it's not drinkable, then okay, true. Then it's not. Then it's not considered part of the living area. Said, and even if it's fit to drink, it's only if there's no part there which is more than 10 tefachim deep, and the depth of 10 tefachim, and the area is based on science. So if you have let me just say, if the depth, when it says he means the depth of 10 tefachim. If it has a depth of 10 tefachim, and that area is more than base sign of depth of 10 tefachim, it's a large, deep area. Also, if it's just a shallow area, that's fine. But if if you have base sign of deep of 10 tefachim, then that's not counted as a living area, and it's also. The Gemara finishes off the lav milsi, and that is incorrect. The Gemara disagrees with the opinion of Rabbi. He says, carry the pera. Right, just like it would be fruits. So just what's water? Water is your food, and therefore it's your food. You're going to eat it, and therefore it's that's part of the living. So what happens if you have fruit? So what happens if you have a hole or a mound? Rashi have the two possibilities. Rashi brings you have a mound, a very high mound, more than 10 tefachim high of fruit. So is that called a not living area? It's fruit. It's part of your living area. You're going to eat it. It's part of your things. And the same thing also if you have a deep hole and you have your food over there, fruits and all different things which you keep there, and you take that and you supply it and you use it to eat and so on. So even though it's deep 10 tefachim, it's still considered part of the living area. Okay. Good evening, Erev Tov, for participation, and for change we finished on tonight.
Shloya?